Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Worrell, candidate for District 4 Boston City Council, and I'm here with Mrs. Candice Gottlieb, an impactful leader in our community who will be sharing her experiences, providing motivation and insight to our future leaders.
I come from New Jersey. I've lived here for going on about 35 years. I moved up in my late 20s just because I needed a little change. I was living in Hoboken, New Jersey, and working in Manhattan for South African Airlines. And it was during apartheid, and it just wasn't sitting well with me. And I knew I needed to make a change in my life. So my sister and I packed our bags and we came up here. And then I started working at Middle East Airlines. So I actually went from the frying pan into the fire in terms of political turmoil for jobs. So I'm used to being in critical work environments. So I've been here again for about 35 years, and working in the airlines was stressful because as a regional sales manager, I traveled a lot, and I always worked for international airlines, so I was out of the country. And by the time I had my second child, we had moved to Dorchester at that point. I realized that I didn't want to be so far away from them. So I ended up, as so many women do, readjusting our expectations of ourselves. And I took the job as an executive assistant for the executive director at Codman Square Health Center. I live in Codman Square. It was an opportunity for me to be close to my kids who went to, at the time, it was the Patrick O'Hearn. And it was just something that I had to readjust my expectations. But I have to tell you, in hindsight, it was the best thing I have ever done. I learned about my community. I learned how to reach out to people. We already lived in a very diverse area. My husband and I made a decision to move into an area that had all kinds of families. And when we moved in, the people across the street, they danced for the Boston Ballet, and they were from the gay population next door to us. We're from Trinidad. A woman across the street is from the Bahamas. We had a Vietnamese neighbor, and that was the environment I wanted my kids to grow up in. It was the environment I grew up in New Jersey. It was very diverse, and I thought it was important that we do that. But I mean, working at the health center, I really learned to get to know my neighborhood in Codman Square. I love my neighbors. I continue to live here. I have no desire to move out. The original plan was to live here for 3 years, fix the place up, make a killing, and then move out. But we fell in love with the neighborhood. It was really wonderful. Where I grew up in New Jersey, it was pretty much suburbia. My father worked for Budweiser. My mother was a telephone operator. There's 5 kids in our family, 1 boy, 4 girls. Pretty generally an unremarkable childhood, with the exception that from other families was that my mother was an alcoholic. And at the time, in the 50s and 60s, you never heard of women being alcoholics. My mother was a brilliant woman. She went to college. She was in the Army overseas. And she was a journalist, but as so many women did in that time, they had to come home and just start a family, and that was her job. And I think that contributed tremendously to her frustration. But on the days where she was good, we had a wonderful, creative, joyful home. She had huge expectations for us. Because she was stationed in France during World War II, she decided that all her children were going to learn to speak French. Even though we're not French, we're all going to learn to speak French, because it's really important, I think, in hindsight, to have more than one language. It makes us more humble. So, my God, we all learned French. I went to college. I was a French major because I didn't know what I wanted to do at that point. It has served me well over the years, oddly enough. A French major, now I'm running a nonprofit for youth. Ask me how that connects. And it does, in some ways. It does. I also have my master's in public administration, but it was a springboard for so many things. So I've had a very, you could say, checkered past, but all of these experiences have contributed to my ability to relate to people and see the struggles that they come from. I realized that the people who inspire me are the ones that I work with, the people in the trenches, on the front lines. And I was thinking about it. I go to these fancy dinners, well, pre-COVID, of course, down in hotels for different events and fundraisers and what have you. And it has happened more often than not that I am friends with the people in the coat room or serving the food than I am for the people getting the award that night. And that's okay with me. It's like those are the people who are doing the hard work, and they are the ones who inspire me to get up and be the best I can every single day. Well, they are already light years ahead of where we started from. They're not asked to take a typing test when they interview for a job. I think for me, I was very fearful about trying new things because I never had, even though my mother was a strong influence with me, she also, it was sort of a contradiction where she'd say, get your college degree, get out there and be successful, but always have a plan B, get your teaching degree because you'll never know if you need it when you get divorced. So I was getting these mixed messages growing up, and I did get my teaching degree, by the way. And I've used it. But, I grew up in this very convoluted expectation of a female. So this generation and my daughter's generation, I try to flip that script a little bit and say, prepare yourself, learn as much as you can, learn how to fix that copier, learn how to answer the phone, learn how to call people back, learn how to be comfortable talking to people face to face. Do the hard thing. If you're scared to run a meeting, I remember that I was asked to run a meeting up at the Codman Square Neighbor Development Corporation, so many years ago. And I didn't think I could do it, but I did it anyway. And once you push through that, it's like, wow, wait a minute, what was I so afraid about? I went back to get my master's when I was 50 years old because I never thought I had the capacity to do that. And I was so fearful, but I did it anyway. And after the first class, I was like, wait a minute, this is, what was I thinking? It took me 4 years to do it because I had 3 kids at that time and I was working full time. But you push through that fear. You have to push through that fear or that potential intimidation and learn through it. I think that would be another lesson. I think the other thing is, learn how to enjoy being by yourself. It gives you the time for reflection. I realized after reading articles about this, I'm an extroverted introvert. I'm really comfortable with people. I love being with people, but I really need my time to rejuvenate. Years ago, my husband and I bought some land in Vermont, like in a crazy moment of whatever, and he built a small cabin that is very rustic. There's no plumbing or anything like that. But I find as my kids are older now and I can get away, I go up there all the time to be myself, by myself, sitting in the middle of the woods, lighting a fire and just sort of decompressing and thinking about things. And it really helps your soul, I think. I'm lucky to have a place like that. Another thing is, keep asking yourself, who do I want to be when I grow up? When I'm with kids and I'm talking about that, I don't ask that question, what do you want to be? I find it very limiting because I still don't know who I want to be when I grow up or what I want to be when I grow up. I mean, look at me, I was a French major, and look at me now. It's like, if I had limited myself to that, who knows? I would have been in some unfulfilled job, perhaps. Who knows? So I think that's the question that's really important that people need to keep asking themselves, and just learn something new every day. You're never smart enough or fully formed enough to know it all. So be humble and learn something new every day. That's just some of the things that I think about all the time. Why I do what I do. I do it because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something, that I was more than what other people thought I could do. And now being the director at ADSL, that was another time where I was terrified about taking over the job, and the first day I walked into that building, I was by myself, working alone. And I said, I can either make this place successful or I can run it into the ground. So I have to make that decision about why I'm doing this. And I was doing it because I needed to prove to myself that I could. And I think I've just had so many experiences over the years where, and I'm sure other women have too, where the expectations are less for them. When I worked for an international airline, one of my managers had said to me, because it was a cultural thing, he said, that a woman's plate is smaller than a man's. And he said that with, sincerity. And I just was so amazed at that. And I said, well, we just have more on it. It may be smaller, but there's a lot more going on. And to have that constant reminder that you're never quite up to the task was something that drove me through the years to try to prove something. And I think that's my why. And it's not to show other people how great I am. I do it for myself. And I think that's what I do every day. I try to prove to myself that it's possible. I don't have time to read right now. I did actually in the beginning of COVID. My influential reads, oh gosh, when I leave work, it's usually a good 10 to 12 hour day. And I come home and I stop. And I just stop because I need to assimilate what I've learned. However, at the beginning of COVID, I had the luxury of being home and not having a plan formulated yet about how to do things. So I started reading nonfiction. I've read The Nickel Boys, the Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. I also revisited The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. I think that's really important about how we connect with each other. I'm going back to some old ones like Kon-Tiki by Thor Heyerdahl, who talks about leadership and engaging people in adventures and exploration. The Radium Girls, Educated. And then I think to feed my soul, I read poems by Mary Oliver. Well, ADSL was started in 1983, and it came about because of the post-busing violence in Dorchester, in Roxbury, and so a number of city leaders came together, the mayor and a lot of the leaders who are still present today in Dorchester. They had to figure out a way to have kids look like. To understand each other and to be on the same team, essentially, as opposed to being adversaries. And they thought the best way to do that was through sports. And what I love about that is that resonates even more so today in terms of our mission. We've expanded our mission, to include academics and enrichment activities. But I think we serve as an entity, and because we're physically located at this crossroads in Dorchester, that our job is to bring kids together through different activities to understand each other and see each other as teammates. And so when I first started there, it was pretty much strictly a sports program. And I thought, this is really great. I'm going to end my career here running this awesome little sports program. And very quickly, I realized that we needed to be a bigger presence and we needed to increase the scope of what we did, because we saw kids coming to the field or to our tutoring programs who hadn't had lunch, or their parents were there was restraining orders, and there were issues on the field, and there were people who came to us for money or needed, help in other ways that weren't directly related to the sports mission that we had. So we worked on it with the board. We changed the name from All Dorchester Sports League, which it had been since 1983, and we changed it to All Dorchester Sports and Leadership. This way we kept the acronym, which is deeply embedded in the neighborhood, because I get calls every day from people like yourself who had participated in ADSL programs, but it still indicated there was an expansion of who we were in the neighborhood. I try to be, in my role, I try to be more active in influencing public policy because it's important for my kids and it's important for my kids' families. And we collaborate with a number of other nonprofits in the Fields Corner area now. We actively collaborate with 8 organizations. And I think that brings strength to all our missions because we can't be everything to everybody at ADSL. But if we can outsource some of the issues that we see that come to our doorstep, then we are serving our neighborhood. So that in essence, that's what I do. In addition to writing grants, doing the marketing, cleaning the bathrooms, which really keeps it real for me, and just responding in any way I can. And I'm in the best job ever because I come in almost every single day with the exception of COVID. And there's so much love from the kids who come through our doors that I couldn't ask for a better job and a better way to finish my career. So, and that's what I do. I love this place. I wouldn't trade it for any other job in the world. Opportunity. It means when I have people, I work, the lovely people who work with me, they are mostly 20-somethings. So we talk about opportunity all the time. And I don't have all the answers because, again, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up or who I want to be. But I think that opportunity means taking initiative. Even though it's frightening, do your due diligence so you know what you're talking about. If you don't know, find out. Don't walk away and leave it open for someone else to figure it out. Be honest and be ready to work really hard for what you want, because the opportunities will land right in front of you, because that's what I think our society is looking for innovators. Try different things and don't limit yourself and learn constantly. We have, an AmeriCorps student. We've been lucky to have AmeriCorps volunteers for a number of years, and their job particularly is to come in and learn, how to work in an organization. And I find that we're lucky enough and we're small enough where they can do a little bit of everything. So that's it. I think opportunity is all around us. We can't sit back and wait for it to come to us. We have to show an interest and make an effort.